Photo. Photo. Photo.
செல்வின் சார் கேக்குதா?
கேக்குது சார். I can hear you.
இப்போ நான் யூடியூப் லைவ் ஸ்ட்ரீம் உங்களுக்கு லிங்க் கொடுத்துட்டேன்.
ஓகே.
இப்போ உங்களை ஹோஸ்டா மாத்திட்டு இப்போ நான் வெளியே வரேன் நான்.
ஓகே சார்.
ஓகே சார்.
Thank you sir.
Sir, shall we begin, sir?
Yeah, we can start now. Please go ahead. Narmada, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yes. Good evening to one and all. Knowledge grows when it is shared, and wisdom deepens when minds come together. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome you all the distinguished dignitaries, faculty members, research scholars, students, and participants joining us from different parts of India for the second webinar of International Webinar Series on Emerging Trends in Humanities, organized by Department of English, St. Joseph University, Tindivanam. Today's webinar explores one of the most relevant and fascinating topics of our time, artificial intelligence and the humanities, creativity, authorship, and ethics. Artificial intelligence is rapidly transforming every sphere of human life. While it offers limitless possibilities, it also raises important questions about creativity, originality, authorship, ethics, and the future of human expression. Today's session promises to help us understand these issues from a scholarly and practical perspective. We are truly honored to have with us an eminent academician whose expertise in English studies and emerging technologies will undoubtedly enrich our understanding. Once again, I extend a warm welcome to everyone. Thank you for joining us, and I hope you enjoy this insightful academic session. It's now my privilege to invite Professor G.M. Joseph Johnston to introduce our distinguished speaker for this evening. Professor, the virtual podium is yours.
Good evening to everyone. I am indeed very happy to introduce Dr. Selvin Vedamanikam, Professor of English, St. Joseph University, Dindivanam. And his talk will be on artificial intelligence and the humanities, creativity, authorship, and ethics. And his expertise is very great in this particular area, as announced by the anchor in this seminar. Professor Dr. Selvin Vedamanikam was with me in MPhil when we were together doing it in Central University, Pondicherry. And we were there for 1 year, 1994, we were together. And till today, more than 42 years, we are very close friends, and we are sailing together in the field of learning together. In fact, he completed his MA English from St. John's College, Palayangote, MS University, under his great mentor, Dr. Arlanandam. He is not only a great mentor to Selvin, to all of us in MS University. And then he continued his PhD under another literary savant, Dr. Noel Irderaj in Bharatidasan University, Tiruchirappalli. And after completing his MPhil, in fact, he took over his work in a corporate. In fact, he began with HCL as a director of operations for media publishing and enlighten. That is just another area where you can show his beautiful expertise on that. And then he was working across Chennai, Hyderabad, Noida, and also United States of America. And he had visited almost all the European countries. After that, he served as a senior manager in Macmillan Publishing House, where he could show his complete expertise in writing. He's a master in writing. And also then he continued as a manager in editorial services. And after that, he was a software in Integra services. And today, he is a professor of English and also ERP expert in St. Joseph's University and all the DMI higher education institutions. In fact, DMI and MMI higher institutions, developed ERP and has made it a very, very simple affair. And I would say his academic career started as his lecturership in Pondicherry University as in the Women's College. And then he came down to St. Joseph University, Dimapur, Nagaland, as a professor of English. From there, he switched over to Sri Saraswati College, Autonomous College in Pollachi as a professor of English. And also, he led the team of IQAC and was able to make that A grade into A+. And that's why he proved his merit in accreditation also. And during his corporate studies, corporate stay, he was a trainer in Lean Six Sigma and Black Belt, Lean Six Sigma Green Belt. He has given umpteen training sessions to the corporate people. Today, he is a master in NEP curriculum design and also other areas wherein IQAC people can learn a lot of things from him. In fact, the biggest credit he has is that in his book, Language, Logic, and Epistemology, Dr. Christopher Norris has acknowledged him as one of the leading writers who has got editorial excellence. And today I would even say he is being guided by his life partner, Dr. Bino Marcus, who is also a professor of English. And the journey they are together, they're going together. And he has, to his credit, around 8 scholarly papers, and he has guided around 5 research scholars in Dimapur and Yusuf University. And he has been giving lots of talks on theory and the theorist. I would even say his hobby is to read the deconstructed critical theorists, Jacques Derrida, Paul de Man, Michel Foucault, Roland Barthes, Jean Baudelaire, and Julia Kristeva, Jacques Lacan, Gilles Deleuze, and Friedrich Nietzsche. When I just call him and find out what are you doing, he will coolly say that I'm reading Nietzsche. In 2024, when we were having a seminar on humanities in AM Jain College, I think Dr. Armstrong was my junior in St. Joseph's College, Trichy, was inaugurating presently the head of the department, professor of English, Madras University, and he is also a member of such committee for Vice Chancellor. He gave the inaugural address, and then I had to give a valedictory address for the Blue Humanities. When we both met him, and then we were discussing what Selwyn Vedamanikam was doing. And he was inquiring about him, and then he finally just concluded one sentence. He swims in the sea of latest theory. With this introduction, I'm extremely happy to give the virtual stage to Dr. Selwyn Vedamanikam. Selwyn, now the virtual floor is yours.
Thanks a lot for your kind words, Anand.
Thank you very much, Professor Joseph Johnston, for the thoughtful introduction. We are delighted to know more about our esteemed speaker and eagerly look forward to his valuable insights. It's now my honor to invite our distinguished resource person, Professor Dr. V. Selwyn, Professor, Department of English, St. Joseph University, Dindivanam, to deliver the special address on the topic, Artificial Intelligence and the Humanities, Creativity, Authorship, and Ethics. Sir, we are privileged to have you with us today. The virtual podium is all yours.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. So trust my slides are visible.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Good evening, everyone, and a very warm welcome. I am delighted to see so many of you joining us for the second session of our webinar series, Emerging Trends in Humanities, hosted by St. Joseph University, Dindivanam. We begin, as always, with gratitude, and this evening's lecture is offered with the blessings of our founder and chancellor, Reverend Father Dr. J. Arul Raj, whose vision of education as becoming fully human and fully alive, as you will see, remarkably close to the very theme of tonight's talk. My sincere gratitude goes to Dr. V. Subaya Bharati, the Honorable Vice Chancellor, for his immense support for this imaginative and innovative international webinar series. My warm love and gratitude go to Professor G.M. Joseph Dunstan, who is the mentor and the logistical champion and logical pillar of this webinar series. Let's jump on. Who am I? Since my birth, I have been called V. Selwyn. I teach English here at St. Joseph University, and for the next 75 minutes, I want to think with you about the most discussed technology of our time, artificial intelligence, but from a direction you may not expect. Not the engineering, not the economics, not the computer science, the humanities dimension of artificial intelligence. Our topic is artificial intelligence and humanities, creativity, authorship, and ethics. We will talk until about 7:45, and then I want your questions. Please collect them in the chat box as we go. I have moved a slide. Is it visible now?
Yes. Yes, yes.
Okay. Okay. Everything I say tonight grows out of one question. What happens to human interpretation when language itself becomes algorithmically generated? Today, everyone is talking about the age of algorithms and everything. Now, language itself has become algorithmically generative. Notice I want you to notice one thing. What that question is not, it is not, will AI take our jobs? It is not, can machines think? These are things we ask often, right? This has become uh, the daily headlines screaming everywhere. Will AI take our jobs? It is not, can machines think? But rather, today I beg you to think on a different dimension. It asks, what happens to us, to reading, writing, judging, and meaning when machines produce fluent language at industrial scale? We will pursue that question through 4 movements, and each movement deliberately converts a technological question into a humanistic one. First, historical foundations. I will argue that AI is best understood as a crisis of interpretation, and that the human being AI is measured against, rational, creative, autonomous, was itself. The human being, whatever we think what we are, was itself invented historically by the Renaissance and the Enlightenment. Second, we'll be talking about creativity. Can machines imagine or only generate? And what is the difference between the two? The third one is authorship. Who is the author when a machine writes? Here, Barth, Foucault, Derrida become surprisingly practical. The fourth one is ethics. We'll be discussing about bias, moral agency, democracy, and our own classrooms. The guiding claim today is in the bottom of your slide. The whole evening, I'll be defending it. AI is a hermeneutic event, an event about meaning and interpretation before it is a computational one. And if that is true, then the humanities are not spectators of the AI revolution, they are its interpretive discipline. So let's remember, AI is a hermeneutic event before it is a computational one. Let's move to Chapter 1, Historical Foundations. You may wonder why I use the term chapter. Deliberately, I use the term chapter instead of section. Normally, presentations are divided into sections. I prefer chapter because the term section does not cover an independent thematic unit. All my chapters tonight can be digested separately or savored together as a full course meal. Okay, let's create a new chapter in AI studies. My claim in this chapter is deliberately provocative. The AI debate is centuries older than computer. We will take 4 steps. AI is a crisis of interpretation, not computation. Then the Renaissance and the Enlightenment, which invented the very idea of the human that AI now imitates. Then 20th century literary theory, which decentered the author long before AI models. And finally, we move from humanism to post-humanism with Catherine Hales and Luciano Floridi as our guides. Artificial intelligence represents a crisis of interpretation before it represents a revolution in computation. We all agree and celebrate that a revolution in computation has come. The computer has evolved. But what I want to focus here tonight is it represents a crisis of interpretation. Now, at first hearing, that would sound paradoxical. AI systems are built by computer scientists. They run on neural networks, optimization, probability. Surely they belong to the sciences. But ask yourself, where the consequences of AI are actually experienced, not in the mathematics, uh, economics, computer sciences, but in language, images, narratives, culture, and associated cultural items. We have large language models in the computer science departments now with AI. Large language models, with that only the AI writes the essays, it imitates poets and answers philosophical questions. The disruption here arrives through the very materials the humanities have studied for centuries. Consider the four observations. First, coherence without intention. For all of literate history, when you meet a fluent, coherent text, you could assume a human mind behind it. That assumption has now broken. It was the reader's most basic assumption. Second, this has happened before. The printing press did not merely copy books faster, it transformed the authority of text and relation between readers and institutions. Marshall McLuhan, the Canadian philosopher of media theory, he puts it in four words. The medium is the message. Every new medium reorganizes meaning itself. Third, this will be little surprise to you. Literary theory got there first. Roland Barthes announced the death of author in 1967. 2 years later, in 1969, Michel Foucault asked the question, what is an author? These two are famous essays you can read. Everyone would have read. The instability of authorship is not news to literary studies. AI has simply made a theoretical claim into a daily experience. Roland Barthes and Michel Foucault, they have made a theoretical claim in the 1960s. Now, AI is making that theoretical claim into a daily experience. Add to this, the fourth one is Luciano Floridi. He's an Italian philosopher. He deals with the philosophy of information and information ethics. You can call it as digital ethics also. He points out about the infosphere. The urgent question is not that machine produce text, but how societies will trust, evaluate, and integrate those texts into cultural life. Let me give you a concrete model. A language model can imitate Hamlet's to be or not to be. It can imitate the syntax, the rhythm, even the vocabulary. But Hamlet's soliloquy is powerful not because of the syntax and the rhythm, because it emerges from dramatic circumstance, psychological conflict, and a man confronting mortality. So meaning arises from the relationships among text, context, performance, reader, and tradition, not from word arrangement alone. That gap between linguistic coherence and existential significance, the gap between linguistic coherence and existential significance is exactly where the humanities live. That's one example. Let us take another example, Paradise Lost. Milton's Satan is not merely a pattern of grand diction. Everyone knows about Milton's language. His rhetoric participates in 17th century debates about authority, rebellion, and free will. An artificial intelligence model can produce Miltonic style with remarkable fluency, but it cannot recreate the historical consciousness embedded in the poem's architecture. This is why the question the AI raises cannot be answered by technical explanation alone. So, what do we remember? What should we remember? The crisis is interpretive before it is technological. Let's move to the next slide. Inventing the human, we should understand a little bit of history, what makes a human. Let me start with the Renaissance. The human has never been a self-evident category. The figure against which AI is measured, the rational, autonomous, creative individual, is the product of a particular intellectual history, and it begins in the Renaissance. See, now we measure AI, right? We measure AI against the concept of human. Who created that concept human, and whether that human, the concept human, is stagnant or evolving? Let's look at it. The Studia Humanitatis, where we see grammar, rhetoric, poetry, and history, moral philosophy, they were not simply information delivery. They were practices for forming persons. Petrarch wrote letters to Cicero as if the dead could be conversed with, because for him, reading was participation in an ongoing human conversation. Let's see Erasmus. Erasmus insisted that eloquence without ethics is dangerous, and conviction without learning is inadequate. To be human in this vision was to be formed through language. Renaissance creativity was imitation of classical models, but imitation understood as creative dialogue, never mechanical reproduction. Originality meant transforming an inheritance through judgment. When someone says AI merely recombines, you should know it is not just a recombination, but a judgment is involved there. Shakespeare's Tempest, for an example, let's take Shakespeare's Tempest. It dramatizes the whole complex situation. Prospero's power comes from books and language, and yet the play ends with the renunciation of that power. Capability is not the same as wisdom. That is the Renaissance sentence, and it's also a 2026 sentence. Now let's move to Enlightenment. The Enlightenment transformed the educated person into the rational subject. René Descartes, cogito ergo sum, he located human certainty in thinking itself. But by separating mind from body, he made it possible centuries later to imagine intelligence as something abstract, detachable, perhaps even installable in a machine. Moving to Kant. Kant defined enlightenment as the courage to think for oneself, reason as a moral responsibility, not just a faculty. Once reason becomes measurable, universal and abstract, the idea of an intelligent machine becomes conceivable. In a real sense, the Enlightenment is AI's conceptual origin. So here is the key. When we ask whether AI is intelligent or creative, we are grading it against criteria this very tradition invented: eloquence, rationality, and autonomy. The deep question is not whether AI can become human, but which historical conception of the human AI has been designed to imitate. This is very important. Which historical conception of the human AI has been designed to imitate? Let me add one caution before we move on. This idealized human, rational, autonomous, coherent, master of language and world, was also an exclusion machine. This idealized human was also programmed, trained, like now we are training the AI models. It marginalized knowledge grounded in embodiment, emotion, gender, colonial experience, and cultural plurality. The universal human of the Renaissance and Enlightenment turned out to be a rather specific European gentleman. Remember that Because when we ask whose language trained the machines and whose ways of knowing they encode, the same critique returns with full force. The question is not whether AI can become human, but which human it was built to imitate. Moving to the next slide, the author was decentered before AI arrived. If you remember one historical fact from tonight, let it be this: the philosophical decentering of the human subject happened long before generative AI. When commentators say AI has suddenly destabilized originality and authorship, they are half a century late to the story. Let me take four names, four steps. The first one is Ferdinand de Saussure. At the beginning of the 20th century, he argued words have no intrinsic meaning. Signs signify through their differences from other signs, but inside a system. Meaning lives in relations, not essences. Now listen to that. Listen to Saussure's concept of how signs interact, how they create meaning inside a system. If you closely listen to Saussure, with a 2026 years, you will know this is nothing but a large language model. Nowadays, the AI engineers talk about LLMs, which is nothing but precisely a machine of relations among linguistic units. Please note, even the AI engineers had defined their model as large language model. They don't have large computer model. They don't have. They have actually named that model as large language model. Structuralism has been in a strange way operationalized. I would say Saussure has been operationalized in the daily headlines today. Roland Barthes, in 1967, he wrote the famous essay, The Death of the Author. Here, the meaning of a text is not guaranteed by the writer's intention. Every text is a tissue of quotations, and meaning is made in the activity of readers. Moving to Michel Foucault, Michel Foucault shifts the question. Author is not a person, but a function, a cultural mechanism by which societies, organizations, or universities, they classify, legitimize, and regulate discourse. Shakespeare is not just a man. He is an institution of interpretation. So we have to ask the question, can AI be an author? That question itself is badly posed. The real question is how publishers, universities, courts will choose to recognize or refuse machine-generated discourse. Now everyone is asking, what part of AI we should accept as writing? So that's happening everywhere. Moving to Jacques Derrida, his concept of deference. Meaning arises through difference and is endlessly deferred. So no interpretation is ever final because new contexts keep reshaping significance. So Barthes displaced authority from the writer to the reader, not from humanity to the machine. Readers are historically situated persons whose interpretation are shaped by culture, ethics, and lived experience. An AI system does not belong to that interpretive community. So AI simultaneously confirms the theory, language exceeds individual attention, and it exposes its limit also. Only situated human readers supply the horizon within which patterns become meaning. Let's take the opening line of Hamlet. Who is there? It's a simple question, but it becomes very powerful. If you ask an AI system to create the same question, it can create. the AI model sees that request as a token sequence. They take every word as a token and they create the syntax and they give you another sentence or question like this. But inside Hamlet, the text, the first line, who is there? When you read that, a reader hears the place whole anxiety. Anxiety about identity, appearance, and reality compressed in 2 words. There is one more turn worth making here. Structuralism and machine learning share a family resemblance. Machine learning and structuralism. Both relocate meaning from individual minds to relational patterns across vast systems. But do not let the resemblance collapse the distinction. Structural analysis was still interpretive. Levi-Strauss studied myth to understand how human cultures make meaning. Machine learning is computational. It identifies probabilistic regularities without ever participating in the cultural practices that give those regularities a significance. Don't confuse the two. If you confuse, then literary criticism will shrink into statistical description. That is the reduction I am resisting today. Literary criticism and literary theory, literature cannot be shrunk into just a mere statistical operation or statistical description. If you say yes, that is a reduction. I am resisting that reduction tonight. So let us keep this in mind that Bach displaced authority to the reader, not to the machine. If we move from humanism to post-humanism, you have to think about two contemporary thinkers. The one is Catherine Hales. She's an American scholar who focuses on the interconnections between science, literature, and technology. She was a research chemist. Then she took literature, a PhD. Now she is writing on the interconnections. She argues that our digital culture keeps making one seductive mistake, treating information as if it could be separated from bodies. Embodiment is at stake. Cognition, Catherine Hales says this, cognition is embodied. It emerges from interactions among body, environment, technology, memory, and culture. Intelligence is not abstract data processing. It is embodied participation in a lived world. That is a direct challenge to the assumption that enough computation will simply produce a mind. Next, let's move to Luciano Floridi. She compliments Catherine Hales. Luciano Floridi, he is an information theorist, media theorist. He says we now live in an infosphere, an informational environment that humans and machines inhabit together. You can't just ignore machines. So we have to live with the machines. It is not that machines are living with us. Humans have to adjust living with machines. The interesting question is no longer human versus machine, but how these environments reshape ethics, institutions, and public knowledge. So this is what critical post-humanism means. It is the recognition that human identity has never existed independently of its technologies. If you see the right side of the slide, I have given you a chain, a cognitive extension, not a rupture. Human beings are distinguished as human beings from other animals is one criteria is we know how to use tools. Animals have less idea of using tools. Some animals have better idea, like crows and other monkeys and other animals. But human beings, we always look into tools. You see this chain here, it is not a rupture, it is a cognitive extension. Language, then writing, then print, then digital media. Now it is artificial intelligence. So these are extensions of our minds with these tools. Plato worried that writing would destroy memory. The printing press was accused of cheapening knowledge. AI is the latest, most sophisticated of these cognitive extensions. I would say it is a cognitive extension and a continuation, not a rupture. So moving to the digital humanities side, now a lot of analysis is happening using computers. To analyze Shakespeare, all his plays, we use computers. See, it actually gives us a healthy relationship. Distant reading, computational analysis of thousands of texts, what it gives, it reveals patterns no individual reader can give. Now, close reading explores the depth of a single text. Distant reading gives you can analyze thousands of texts. These are complementary scales, not rivals. Algorithms find patterns, but only scholars can say why a pattern matters historically, culturally, and aesthetically. Moving to medical humanities, or you can call it as the health humanities, here is the test that happens really. AI can summarize a clinical record, but no algorithm can replace the interpretive encounter between physician and patient, through which suffering acquires meaning. You have a bunch of clinical records. AI can analyze, give you a pattern, give you sort of a neat table of understanding, but the interpretive encounter, you and your doctor, when you talk about the suffering, the meaning is generated there. That is where a human stands. Computation can augment understanding, but it cannot replace relationships that make understanding humane. So the central implication is AI is not an external challenge attacking the humanities from outside. It emerged from within the very processes the humanities have always studied: the evolution of language, the transformation of media, the circulation of texts, the negotiation of meaning. Understanding it adequately requires neither technological enthusiasm nor nostalgic resistance, but simple critical interpretation. The future of AI will depend on the quality of our interpretive traditions, no less than on the progress of computational science. So far I have completed chapter 1. The historical details have been analyzed. Let's move to chapter 2. The first one was the historical foundations, Renaissance, Enlightenment, and 20th century to 21st century. We just had a genealogical runway to give you sort of a takeoff. So now we are going to talk about creativity. Can the machines imagine? When an AI produces a sonnet, now you can write a poem in seconds. Something in us protests. That is not real creativity. I want to take that protest seriously, but also to interrogate it. What do we actually mean by creativity? We have to ask a question now. The first chapter we discussed what is meant by human. Now we are going to discuss what is meant by creativity. I'm just going to do that in 4 steps. First, a genealogical idea from Plato to cognitive science, the great contrast between romantic imagination and algorithmic generation, the uncomfortable truth that originality was always intertextual. And I'm just going to do a close reading of Borges, Calvino, and Atwood. Let us see creativity as an evolving idea. Before we can ask whether AI is creative, we must confess something awkward. Creativity has never had one meaning. Every age has redefined it. Let's see these 6 pointers. First, Plato, for Plato, creativity was inspiration, a divine madness that possesses the poet from outside. The poet is not in control. These are Plato's ideas. But Aristotle answered with techne and mimesis. He said creativity is something skilled, making and meaningful imitation of nature. It is a craft, something like that. Then moving to Renaissance, creativity is nothing but an imitation of the classics. It is not a mere imitation, but imitation as a dialogue, transforming inherited models through judgment. Then the reversal comes in Romanticism, or through Romanticism. Imagination becomes an inner, living, originating power. Then let's move to Eliot modernism. Here, a little bit of complications happen. In traditional individual talent, a very famous essay, Eliot argues that no poet has meaning alone. Every genuinely new work enters the tradition and subtly rearranges the whole inherited order. Now, creativity is a relationship with the past, not an escape from it. Moving to the final one, the cognitive science, exploratory and transformational creativity, recombining familiar ideas, exploring a style space, transforming the rules of the space itself. When someone declares AI is not really creative, the humanities reply with a better question. Which historical conception of creativity is AI being measured against? Which historical conception of creativity is AI being measured against? Against Plato's inspiration? Against romantic genius? Against Aristotle's craft? The answers differ. The difference is where serious thinking begins. Moving to the next, I've just taken one case study. The romantic imagination versus algorithmic generation. Let's take romantic imagination. Wordsworth defined poetry, everyone knows, emotion recollected in tranquility. See, if you say this, see this definition, poetry as emotion recollected in tranquility. I'm just compressing that. Every word of it, if you consider it as a formula, it presupposes a life, emotion, something felt in a body, recollected. The word recollected, it's a personal memory, a past that belongs to someone. Tranquility, a present state from which past is reseen and transformed. See, even the definition has life in it, presupposes some form of life. If we move to Keats' negative capability, the poet's capacity to dwell in uncertainties, mysteries, and doubts without irritably reaching after fact and reason. Imagination for Wordsworth and Keats is inseparable from lived, embodied historical experience. If you take Coleridge, excuse me, if you take Coleridge, he talks about primary imagination, secondary imagination, and fancy. Secondary imagination, you need a soul, and fancy is just rearranging of all the facts, and it's only a computational, combinational stuff, which you can equate with the recent AI algorithmic generations. The question now is, Let's move to the algorithmic generation. The statistical recombination across billions of texts produces astonishing pattern fluency. You give billions of texts to a computer, it will give you a pattern. But that fluency is without experience. See, there is no remembered afternoon behind the machine's Tintin Abbey. Prompt and probability stand where vision and struggle used to stand. Now you say prompt, what do you type into it? That's prompt. Probability, what it can bring. But those days we're talking about vision and struggle. See, there is no one, no consciousness for whom the work matters. No self whose existence is expressed or risked in the rewriting. Let me give you an example from, excuse me. Let me give you an example from a daily life. You're asking AI to produce a sentence. Some prompt you have given, and it gives you a sentence, something like, I remember my mother's hands. What? I remember my mother's hands. But there is no remembering, no mother, no hands. It is generation, not imagination. It is combination, it is not interpretation. It is an engineering one, it is not a humanities question. See, there might be a strongest objection. If you know the Turing test, what is the Turing test in computer? If the computer and a man, they produce two products and no one can identify the difference between the two, then it passes the test. See, it is one question is abandoned here. If we accept outputs only, we have not proven machines imagine. That redefinition is a choice, a cultural philosophical choice. It should be made with open eyes, not smuggled in by benchmark. Human beings are not to be judged by just benchmarks alone. Let's move to originality. Yeah, when you talk about creativity, the next problem is originality. Originality itself is a myth. See, the most common objection to AI creativity, right? Everyone says it merely recombines existing texts. But you have to remember, every text is woven from prior texts. Influence is the condition of creation, not its negation. Let's take Shakespeare, the supposed supreme star, right? Shakespeare. He borrowed Hamlet from Scandinavian legend, Lear from medieval chronicles, Romeo and Juliet from Italian novellas, The Tempest from travel narratives. Take Keats, he built his works out of Milton, Spenser, and the sonnet tradition. If recombination disqualify creativity, we would have to expel Shakespeare from the canon first. So where is the real difference? The real difference is not influence versus novelty, but the interpretive consciousness that turns inheritance into meaning. So let's take a little bit of, I won't say close reading, but I have done that close reading in my backyard. I'll just give you the output, whatever I found out. See, literature imagined all of this before AI existed. Now everyone would really distrust me. I'll give you three examples. One, Borges, the Argentine short story writer, in the Library of Babel, he pictures a universe containing every possible combination of letters, every book that could have been written. The library is a fantasy thing, and the library is a nightmare because infinite recombination without a reader is noise, not literature. So only he terms the short story as the Library of Babel. So it's a combination of everything, right? Then let's move to Calvino, Italo Calvino in the 1960s. He writes something on literature machine. What in the 1960s, okay, when the computer was in the nascent state, he cheerfully imagined a literature machine and observed that even a combinatorial machine needs culture around it to feel the clinamen, the meaningful swerve that makes a text matter. This is number two. Number three, Atwood's speculative fiction, Oryx and Crake, The Testaments, and The Handmaid's Tale, it keeps returning to a single warning. Creation divorced from responsibility becomes catastrophe. So these writers saw the generative future coming and told us the missing ingredient would be interpretation. So what is at stake is interpretation. See, there is a further implication worth discussing. If creativity has always been intertextual, then the moral panic about AI stealing from the tradition needs more careful language. The legitimate concerns are different, sharper, consent and compensation and scale. Now we have to move to a humanities theory of creativity. I'm just going to discuss three items. One is the AI art. We have a lot of AI art, associated copyright issues. The first one is AI art and copyright. The courts and the copyright offices of the world, they are discovering that creativity is not only an aesthetic idea, but a legal and economic one. Now, creating art is an economic one. You have to create some design of your wedding card or your brochures and everything. You would have seen, I'm just throwing a lot of quick brochures into the WhatsApp group of this webinar. Those are all AI created. That's an economic one. Now, the question is that aesthetic idea, is it a legal and economic one? Copyright law was built on romantic assumptions. A solitary human originator owning a novel creation. AI has exposed the inadequacy of those assumptions because literary theory was right all along. Creativity is intertextual. That's number one. Number two is the digital humanities. As I told you earlier, AI, the computers, the algorithms, they have become already a scholarly collaborator, searching archives, finding patterns, drafting summaries across the research workflow. You use AI in digital humanities. Now, the question is, who remains answerable for the claims? Who remains answerable for the output? It is the human. You can't sue a AI model. The third one is medical humanities. As I have already touched on this point, the illness narrative is not a data set. As I told you, medical records can be summarized, categorized, and tabulated. You can even find a summary of it. But it requires empathic, situated understanding. That is called narrative intelligence. It is not fluency. So the doctor-patient relationship is something different, and AI cannot replace a doctor. So now everything together, it is pointing towards creativity. Creativity is not production, but interpretation. Machines now generate possibilities cheaply and endlessly. Generation has become generation, the generating generation has become abundant. Interpretation remains scarce and precious. That is the most dangerous thing. Even this applies for education. So let us stop here with the creativity. Move to the chapter 3. The first one is the historical foundations. The second one is creativity. Now I am moving to authorship. Who is an author? Who writes when a machine writes? You're asking the machine through a prompt to write something. The machine writes. Now the question is, who writes? Whether the machine or it is you. I want to discuss few items here from the literary theory. First, a genealogy showing that author is a historical construction. Author itself is a historical construction. Remember, human is a historical construction. Creativity is a historical construction. Now, author is a historical construction. How would I say the first is a genealogy? The oral tradition, medieval authority, copyright law, romantic genius. For this, I'd be discussing four theorists. I'll be rereading them for the AI age. Barth, Foucault, Derrida, and Harold Bloom. Then I'll be doing a sort of a two close readings. One is Ishiguro and Atwood. The author is a historical construction, as I said earlier. Let's think on these 6 pointers. Stage 1 is oral tradition. Epics and songs were composed communally and anonymously. The singer performed the tale but did not own it. There simply was no author in our sense. Moving to the medieval world, auctoritas, there the tradition belonged, right? That belonged to a tradition, to the divine sanction. Scribes transmitted and glossed. There is no author even now. Stage 3 is decisive, that is the print and copyright. In the 18th century law, England's Statute of Anne, that is the first time a copyright law was created in Britain, England's Statute of Anne. They only turned the author into an owner of intellectual property. So author was invented by legislation. Moving to romantic genius, the solitary originating self, which we discussed earlier. The stage 5, the 20th century critique, the theory decenters the author towards reader, discourse, and institution. And the current age, the generative AI, text without persons at industrial scale. So AI does not kill the author. So many of us would say that AI is killing the author and everything. It is not. AI is exposing that authorship was always an institution. Let's move to the fourth theorist. As I told you earlier, I'm going to reread the four theorists for you. First is Barth. The death of the author is the most misquoted phrase in the whole debate. Barth was not saying texts have no source. He was relocating the production of meaning from the writer's intention to the reader's activity. You read or reread Barth in 2026, the essay is prophetic. Machine texts are the ultimate authorless text, but there is a fine print warning. Authority was passed to readers by Barth to human interpretive communities, but now that's a question. Moving to Foucault, the author function. Author as an institutional mechanism that classifies texts, assigns responsibility, and regulates discourse. Now we should stop asking the metaphysical question. Can AI write? Yeah, it can write. We should stop asking the question. We should ask the institutional question. How will publishers, universities, and courts recognize, label, credit, or reject AI discourse? Now I'll tell you, authorship in the future will be decided in the policies, in the bylines, in the statutes. Moving to the third item, writing. Jacques Derrida, he argues, writing is structurally independent of its author's presence. A text must function in the writer's absence. Even after the writer's death, that is what makes it right. Equally, AI radicalizes this into a kind of infinite writing, language produced with no presence behind at all. But yet, I want to warn you, Derrida, he insists meaning is inseparable from context, from the singular situation of reading. From the singular situation of reading. The machine supplies the text. What gives the significance? The situations supply significance. We comfortably forget these things. I want to give you a fresh angle using Harold Bloom. In his The Anxiety of Influence, Bloom argued that strong poets are formed by an agonistic struggle with their great precursors, creativity as something wrestling, misreading, and overcome. Now apply this to the machine. Machine too learns from vast bodies of earlier writing, but there is a caution. But its relation to the past is frictionless. There is influence, but there is no anxiety. There is echo, there is no wrestling. For Bloom, the struggle is the creativity. That is precisely what computational aggregation lacks. Now, I want to summarize these four. Barth tells us where meaning is made in readers. Where meaning is made in readers. Foucault tells us where authorship is decided in institutions. Derrida tells us what writing is, language functioning beyond the presence. Bloom tells us what creative formation costs, struggle. AI satisfies Derrida's definition of writing perfectly, floats free of Barth's readers, awaits Foucault's institutional verdict, but has never paid Bloom's price. The theory was waiting for the machine. If you talk about moving to collaboration, you have to really talk about Shakespeare, Eliot, and Borges. Shakespeare, Eliot, and Borges, they teach us something. They teach us authorship has always been collaboration across time. Shakespeare collaborates with his sources. Eliot's poet collaborates with the whole tradition. Borges gives us a perfect thought. Let me take one of his short stories, Borges' short stories. The short story's title is Pierre Menard, author of the Cuvée. See, Menard is a imaginative short story. Menard is a 20th century writer. He sets out to write Don Quixote. See, he's going to redo Cervantes' Don Quixote. But Menard, an imaginative writer, he's copying it from his own experiences. At many pages, he's coinciding word for word with Cervantes. So this is an imaginative writer doing this thing. And Borges tells us with a straight face to us that Menard's Don Quixote is richer than Cervantes. The same words written from a different historical position mean something different. Now transpose this to AI. If meaning depended on word sequences alone, Menard's text would be identical to Cervantes's, and Machine's Hamlet would be Shakespeare's. It is not. Because meaning depends on who answers for the words, from where. So Borges refuted text equals meaning in 1939 itself. Borges refuted text equals meaning in 1939 itself. Second, we'll move to Atwood and Ishiguro. Atwood I've covered that Oryx and Craig, the Testaments, the Handmaid's Tale, everything. I'll take Ishiguro. See, both Atwood and Ishiguro, they don't write tech optimism or tech panic. That is, you'll say optimistic or pessimistic. They don't take it. They investigate how artificial beings force humans to redefine themselves. There are two novels, Never Let Me Go, Clara and the Sun. So, in both of these things, the authorship is of one's own story, the ground of personhood. This is what the artificial generation would lack. If we take digital humanities, as I told you earlier, the real projects, now I know a lot of departments are running digital humanities projects. They run large projects using computers. They credit scholars, programmers, curators, and annotators. Now, AI sits in that workflow. So, who can answer for what is written? So, an author is not simply someone who writes, but someone who can answer for what is written. So, finally, I have to say that authorship is a responsibility for meaning. The first one is copyright and intellectual property. The second one is the ethics of attribution. The third one is accountability cannot be generated by a language model. Now we are moving to the last chapter, that is the ethics. In this chapter, I'm going to talk about the ethical crisis. There is a crisis from Aristotle to Levinas. Second, can AI be moral? I'm going to take a little bit of close study on Frankenstein, Brave New World, and Never Let Me Go. Then move to our classrooms and democracy. So when AI is started ruling the world, now everyone is talking about ethical crisis. No, even this is not very new. See, there is a genealogy of responsibility. I would call it as a genealogy of responsibility that would move from Aristotle to Kant to Mill to Levinas. If I take Aristotle, ethics begins not with rules but with flourishing. That we call it as eudaimonia, human flourishing or living well. And what is this instrument? Phronesis, the practical wisdom. Move to Kant, morality as duty. Treat persons always as ends, never merely as means. If you move to Mill, consequences are what count. The greatest good for the greatest number. A powerful principle with famous blind spots about minorities and rights. Moving to Emmanuel Levinas. Levinas' approach is completely different because he saw the catastrophes of 20th century, the wars and the bloodshed and everything. His ethics begins in the face of the other, the vulnerable, singular human being before me, whose presence commands responsibility before I calculate anything. For Levinas, responsibility precedes freedom. So these are old questions. New machinery, justice, harm, truthfulness. That's number one. Number two, ethics is not compliance. It is not checklists and guidelines, right? Ethical judgment is interpretive. You have to read situations, just not rules. The third one is the Levinasian test. That's very important. Can a system with no face, no vulnerability, no mortality ever bear responsibility? It cannot. The pertinent question would be, can AI be moral? What happens to the bias and algorithmic justice? See, the moral agency. Philosophy has generated, it reads three things. One is consciousness of what one is doing, intention in doing it, and the capacity to be held accountable afterwards. AI is a moral instrument, not a moral agent. You see, you can delegate decisions, but you can't delegate responsibility. Remember, you can delegate decisions, you can delegate work, but you cannot delegate responsibility. Derrida sharpens this point beautifully. Law can be computed, rules, precedents, procedures. Derrida says this. Law can be computed, but justice cannot. Because justice must respond to the singular case, the, the one the rules did not foresee. Remember, law computes, justice interprets. Bias and power, this is the standard AI story, right? Bias is not a bug. You go to any operational system, you'll call a lot of bugs are there. It is an archive of past injustice that is made operational. We have to take literature as an ethical laboratory. The first one is Frankenstein, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. It is 1818. It is not in 2021, right? It's not 2021. 1818. Everyone remembers the monster. The novel is about the maker. Victor Frankenstein's sin is not a creation. It is about the abandonment. He creates a technical marvel, then he flees the responsibility. The same way, the temptation facing every AI laboratory is build, release, look away. Now, the companies who build the AI models, they should take the responsibility. That is the number one. Number two, Brave New World in 1932. It runs the opposite experiment. Everything works perfectly. Huxley's society has abolished suffering and everything. But comfort is purchased with freedom. Huxley's question is uncomfortably current. In an age of recommendation engines optimizing our attention, there is no freedom. Moving to Ishiguro's Never Let Me Go 2005 work, the clones. The novel talks about the clones. The clones are gentle, loving, fully human. But there is no legal status. Personhood, care, and quiet complicity. Right? Who counts as fully human? Who can say who is human, who is fully human, and who decides? These questions AI cannot discuss in full. The final argument is going to be little tricky on education, democracy, and misinformation. Let's talk about democracy. Synthetic media. What do we have in this 2026? We have synthetic media. What is this synthetic media? Synthetic media is not natural media, someone would say. Yeah. Synthetic media is nothing but all your AI generated images, videos, information, news items, wherever it is spread, right? No human reporter, human editor checking for facts and these things, nothing. Anyone can pump uploading material. The synthetic media and machine generated information, it has eroded reality. Now we are at the crossroads of understanding what is real. That is very, very dangerous. Which video is fake? What is an inconvenient video? What can be dismissed as fake? The corrosion of trust is the deeper wound. The deeper wound is the corrosion of trust. Notice once again, this is also a crisis of interpretation. The question facing every situation is hermeneutic. What should I believe? On what evidence and why? Now, verification institutions matter. So do educated readers. Without embarrassment, that's why I say the humanities training is civic infrastructure, not a luxury. Let's take this point home tonight. Humanities training is civic infrastructure, like your road, like your light, like your train. It's a basic civic infrastructure. It is not luxury. A society of skilled, skeptical, generous readers is a society misinformation finds hard to colonize. Moving to our own house, we are all teachers, students. We are doing part of the education as an umbrella, right? Our own house. Now we have a panicked response to AI. The universities are jumping here and there. Oh, we should have a plagiarism software, detection software. We have to ban suspicion. Yeah, it is necessary, but it is not sufficient. You can never do that because it mistakes the purpose of education. If education is the production of correct answers, AI has indeed broken it. I will repeat. If education is the production of correct answers, AI has indeed broken it. If education is the cultivation of judgment, interpretation, and intellectual maturity, then the task is different. Move from policing plagiarism to teaching AI literacy. The responsibility should never be delegated. Now let's and take Kant. And Kant hands us the test we need. Does this use of tool exercise the student's independent judgment or erode it? Teach students to interrogate AI output. Now students should not simply swallow the AI output. They should understand where does it come from? What biases does it carry? Where are its limits? See, if you teach the students this, excuse me, and if you have made machine an occasion for enlightenment in Kant's exact sense, the goal is not to avoid AI. It is to preserve intellectual autonomy while using it. Let me speak directly to the students for a moment. The temptation of these tools is real. It is not laziness, it is efficiency. And efficiency feels like virtue. But every time you delegate a judgment you have not yet learned to make, you postpone becoming the person who can make it. Use the machine to test your thinking, to argue with, to survey a field, and then write the sentence yourself. You can use the machine to test your thinking, to argue with, to survey a field, to gather materials and everything. This is like another photocopier machine. You go to a library, take a photocopy here and there, take books, e-books, gather everything, but write the sentence yourself, because the sentence is where your mind is formed. I would say the writing is where, the act of writing is where your mind is formed. Remember Kant's sapere aude, dare to know, was addressed to individuals and is still is. Remember, humanities training is civic infrastructure, not a luxury. I've come to the final slide. I have to make a synthesis and close the argument. The argument moves in four moves. You know, the one is artificial intelligence is a crisis of interpretation before it is a revolution or revolution in computation. Second, creativity is not production, but interpretation. Machines generate possibilities, humans turn possibility into meaning. Three, authorship is not writing, but responsibility for meaning. Four, ethics is not compliance, but interpretation guided by responsibility. Thank you for your attention and for spending your Saturday evening thinking about these questions. We have about 10 minutes, I say. I already taken some 5-10 minutes extra. I mean, what our series says, your questions matter as much as the answers. Please type them in the chat or raise your hands and our moderator will bring them to me. I am especially glad to take disagreements. If you think a machine can imagine or that the author really is dead, let us argue about it. And before we close, do join us next Saturday, the 18th July, for webinar 3. And this webinar series will continue for another 13 more sessions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for such an enlightening and inspiring and thought-provoking presentation. Your scholarly reflections on the relationship between artificial intelligence and the humanities have helped us appreciate not only the opportunities presented by AI, but also the ethical responsibilities that accompany technological advancement. We are grateful for your valuable time and insightful address, sir. We shall now moving on to the interactive session. Participants are requested to type their questions in the chat box. Kindly keep your questions very brief so that more participants may have the opportunity to interact with the speaker.
Yeah, till the time we receive questions, I'll take a 2 minutes break.
Sure, sir. Participants, please keep posting your questions in the chat box.
Sam Surya.
So yes.
Yeah, I am Dunstan here. I mean, I'm having another session actually.
Okay.
I'm in a actually I just listened to the whole thing and it's very good, wonderful. And now I'm going for another session. Actually, I'm in a counseling session here in Cochin. Okay. So I'll talk to Selvin later, dear. Wonderful
Yes,
session. I congratulate him. Okay. Thank you.
yes.
Thank you, sir.
Ma'am, is Dr. Selvin online?
He's gone for.
Yeah, okay. Dear participants, chat box is open and we're already getting few questions. And the feedback link is already posted at 7:45. Please check the chat box for your feedback link. The feedback
Sam,
link.
we couldn't hear you. You are.
Sir, yes, sir.
Sam?
Am I audible now?
Sam, I am back.
Yes, sir. Sir, there is a question for you from Mr. Joseph Ludhraj. Professor, what about the major contribution of AI in enhancing English writing skills other than the AI tools?
Sam, we couldn't hear you. Narmada, can you hear me?
Yes, sir, I can hear you. I could hear Sam sir's voice.
Hello?
Yes.
Sir, am I audible?
Shall I read the question, sir?
Yes, ma'am, please.
Yeah. So, one participant, Mr. Gopinath. What is the difference between the author and the ghostwriter? In sports autobiography, ghostwriter talks about resilience. Is it authentic, sir?
Now, 1 second. I'm just trying to look into the question myself. So, what is the question? Can you repeat the question?
I'll repeat, yeah. Yes.
Oh.
Yes. What is the difference between the author and the ghostwriter? In sports autobiography, ghostwriter talks about resilience. Is it authentic?
Yeah, this is one form of rental womb, I would say. The ghostwriter, see, the writer cannot write. They hire another writer to write, and the ghostwriter, see, these are the capitalist ideas of authorship. For example, I would say, what is the difference between biography and autobiography? See, that is openly said that I am writing on somebody else's. It actually, see, both of the genres have developed on its own. For example, biography about other and autobiography about the self. But ghostwriters, they don't have any validity. See, even the newspaper uh, articles, they have the names of the writers. But the ghostwriters, by the sheer force of funding and capital availability, they do, and they vanish. In fact, so there are a lot of ghostwriters, and they vanish. The same way, there is a problem with the output. Whom whom do you sue in the court of law? The ghostwriter or the the writer, the author with the name printed on the printer? So these are all, once again, it is not the problem of authorship. You are trying to create yet another a quagmire of institutional authorship, as I argued earlier. It is always there.
Next
Can I go
question.
ahead? Can
Yes,
I go
please.
ahead with the question I have, please?
Yeah, that is Saranya Francis. Hi,
Yes.
Saranya. Go ahead,
Good,
please.
Dr. Selvan. Always a
Yeah.
pleasure to be a part of your highly intellectual discussions. And one of the things that I absolutely admire is your ability to not only deal with disagreements, but also wish for disagreements when participants are listening to you. That shows the authenticity of your claim that opinion formation or judgment is the main purpose of the humanities. That said, my question is, you mentioned that the author is responsible to answer for what is written, right?
Yeah.
This was the statement that you made when you were discussing discussing the question of who is responsible, or the reason why we should not be panic stricken by AI. You said the author is answerable for what is written, and AI. You also made a statement that AI creators make AI happen and look away. So these two statements to me seem a little contradictory, because if AI is participating in the authorship, then
Yeah,
if
I
the
could.
maker of the
Yeah,
AI instrument has looked away, then
yeah,
who takes the responsibility or answers for what is written? A. And B, if the existing realistic organic author is to be answerable for what is written, then the whole idea of interpretation for me takes a defeat, isn't it?
yeah. I would. You have asked two questions. I would take the easiest one first. Uh, Let us take an example of an AI imitating the syntax, the word arrangements, and the whatever of Wordsworth, and it recreates Tintin Abbey and gives you a beautiful poem. What is missing is the organic whole, because you're talking about organic author, right? See, most structuralists would question what is organic whole, but still, I would say, in this age of AI, we have to take all the theories together. The syntax, the word arrangement, and the tone, everything will be correct. But there is no human mind to understand the afternoon Wordsworth experienced, recollecting the past, the emotion. See, that is missing in the AI-driven or AI-outputted poems or writing. That's number one. Number two, the contradiction you pointed out, that is very good. That is what is all about my argument today, because authorship is all about evolving. As I told you earlier, the contradiction will lead to finer statutes, the bylaws, or some declarations by the policy declarations by universities. They will declare who is the author. Now, the third associated question is who will take responsibility? Now, why we have to create legal systems around authorships? After the proliferation of copies, after the printing press was invented, the copies start proliferating. In those days, scribes were there. They will order one or two books, that's all. There will be no copyright issue. When printing press made publications cheap, the authorship has to be protected. That's what they created authorship in the Statute of Anne. The same way, the authorship is evolving when it comes to 70 years copyright. After 70 years, it becomes anyone can publish anything. Now you have a lot of Shakespeare editions. I can also publish Selwyn Shakespeare edition because the text is open. So these are things evolving because now AI into place, the statutes, policies, declaration, everything will be recreated. That's number one. Number two, someone has to take ownership. Why? If there is a false claim, you take it to the court of law. See, forget about author is dead, author is not responsible for the meaning, the presence is not there, in the absence, meaning the reader, birth, and all, okay. But when you take a book to the court of law, there should be a human agency, a human element. He has to be questioned, he has to be penalized, or he has to be acquitted or convicted. So for these things, we need a different types of authorship today. The associated question you said was the AI companies are creating the platforms and they are looking away. They will. When AK-47 was invented, right, Kalashnikov, he is now gone. It is up to you to have that to defend or offend. It is in whose hands the tool is and for what purpose. That's what we say, the interpretation. You have a knife, you have a gun. What end it is going to serve and what is the output? So only I'm just saying interpretation crisis is the main thing we have to do. Trust I have answered your question. Any other questions?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Under the 18th century law, if AI is the author, then do they own their work? Is it plagiarism if an AI isn't credited for the work?
And this is someone called Alice Samuel, right? Under the 18th century law and other applicable model, if the AI is the author, then ruling. Yeah, now you have to understand the technical side of AI. Let us not talk about the 18th century law because during the 18th century, AI, yeah, no one would have imagined something like this would have happened. Maybe the first person to talk about literature machine was Borges in 1939 only. What is plagiarism? Unattributed use of the previous material is plagiarism. That's all. See, You can use AI. I would say you can use AI for material collection, tabulation, and arrangement. You check and you create your interpretation out of it. It is like referring to the library, right? You go to the library, collect a lot of materials and whatnot. You take everything and you attribute it. Then it is not plagiarism. Now, the AI will make mistakes. ChatGPT, your Claude, your other AI systems, right? They will make mistakes. I'll tell you, ChatGPT is the stupidest of all AI, I would say, but it is the free stuff available. Everyone is using, but it is so dumb. And I'll tell you, you run the AI, ChatGPT, you take one image, run the same image for 7 times. You will get a different image in the 9th time. Your face will be different. You know why? I can explain if you have the patience. See, there is something called a technical canvas the AI will use. They will not have a zoning canvas. So every time ChatGPT runs, they will run the entire canvas, not the zoning canvas. Even if you give a prompt exactly to change the left bottom figure, the entire ChatGPT will run the entire canvas again because zoning is expensive. Zoning takes much energy because it involves more logic. More logic means more electricity, more water, more money. So if you have a free version, they will give you the open canvas every time going through. So do you have the patience and the brilliance to check whether it is correct or not? It is your responsibility. Yeah. Next question.
Dr. Rachina Banu.
Sir, I'm unmuting a participant.
Okay.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. It'll be good if you can introduce yourself and ask the question.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yes,
I
sir.
can hear
Loud
you.
and clear. Can you please introduce yourself because your name is not available there?
Yes, I'm R. Muthukumar.
Yes, sir. What is your question?
Hello, Muthukumar.
Hello, Dr. Selvin.
Yeah,
Thank you
Muthukumar,
for
you appears as a ghost. Vivo B2249, right?
yes, but I am not a AI Muthukumar. I am a real Muthukumar.
Yeah, you are the specter of specters of Muthukumar. Yeah.
Yes. I have posted a series of comments in the chat box when you were the pass of lecturing, but
Yeah.
I don't think it will appear to you or not. That's what I want to ask you. I post a series of comments in the chat
Yeah.
while you are lecturing.
Yeah, but my
I
site
don't know
was
whether you got it or not.
no, there is yeah, I will now I know the ghost has a face, the Vivo B2249. Yeah. Large language model which AI invokes, I am afraid is not language which Sasur wants to think oppose. Yeah. See, I'm not saying that Sasur created the large language model.
My first question is, you thought as a lecturer as AI is a hermeneutics. It's a question of interpretation or hermeneutics. But I pose the question, it is a question of survival. When I lose my job, I am in job, then only I can read and write. If I lose my job with the AI, it's a question of survival. So that has to address first. That's my first question.
Yeah, correct. I will answer this. See, this is a webinar with a topic that is a limited topic where I can touch on certain aspects. I know what you're speaking, but I cannot bring all that we have to discuss in AA in 1 hour time, Muthukumar. I know you would appreciate that.
Okay.
Yeah, the second is language is no more human. That is okay. That's what I said. Language is not human. If you,
But
I don't know when did you join my lecture. In my first chapter,
no, your thesis running like this as a language is not human, but your pathos is telling language is human. And we have to.
Yeah, I completely appreciate your interpretative reception that you see pathos. That I really appreciate it. But my argument was language is an instrument, a tool. That's what I gave you a 5 chain in my first chapter. It started with language, then writing, then printing press, digital media, then cognitive AI science. So definitely, I am not going to accept the fact that language is human. Language is an instrument to human. Then the next one is large language model, which AI invokes. I am afraid it's not language, it's assure. No. It is not the Saussurean concept, but that is the derivative operation how AI works. Because I come from the technology background, I know how large language model works, Muthukumar.
Sorry to interrupt. In your whole lecture, there is no, you are not posing distinction between the very obvious and traditional, historical distinction between the natural language and the computational language or computer language.
Yeah, Muthukumar, because I have taken that as a given. Because I'm talking to the erudite scholars and teachers, they know the difference between synthetic language and natural language. That is a given. So now I'm talking about the large language models. Large language model, why they are using language? Because language has nothing to do with your synthetic language or natural language. I see a pattern in Saussurean how science work in a setup. That's the thing LLM also is using. That's my idea there.
Okay, my next chat. Come on.
Muthukumar, let's give because it's already 8:17.
Yes, okay.
Sam Surya, we will give opportunities to others also.
Yes, sir. We have one more question from Dr. Rajina Banu. It's down below chat box.
Okay.
Language literature, the interference of AI is huge. And the learners have started believing that AI is more capable of writing for them. While many developed nations switch to pen and paper methods, our students are getting more and more addicted to AI. How would this over reliance affect literary or linguistic research and creative writing in India?
Yeah, this is a valid question. This shows the pain of a teacher. See, now, don't hide ChatGPT from the students. Do you have the strength to open ChatGPT inside the classroom and teach them how you are creating notes? See, that is my chapter 4 argument. Now try to teach students your AI models and tell them where to find bias, where is the source, where you can add value, where you can add interpretation. So these things are important. See, I know in Norway, in Sweden, in Australia, and all people are moving back to pen and papers and these things, right? Okay. Do you think the government is going to ban the AI? It will not be, because it is a capitalist funded one, and no one will touch the AI for next 50 years. Unless until a revolution comes, that will never happen. Okay. Now we are in a situation where we are living. So we have to make sure that our students do not carried away with whatever the AI is giving as an output. So we have to teach them how to identify, dissect, and move with their own interpretations and to their benefit. That's my recommendation.
Further questions, sir? So participants, if you're willing to ask, would raise your hand and ask the question. all the questions.
Okay then. Thank you.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much, sir, for patiently answering all the questions and making the session highly interactive and engaging. As we approach the conclusion of today's webinar, it is time to express our heartfelt gratitude to everyone. I think somebody's raising their hand. Sir, could you please unmute your?
Yeah, Binu has a question.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah, you're audible, ma'am.
So, in the structuralist approach, the message is not important, the medium is important, right? That's what we know. But from what I understand from the lecture, that the author becomes very important in the age of AI. We give more importance to the author. I think that is where there's some kind of clash there, because the structuralists talk about not giving importance to the ideology or the biography of the author. But again, why do we have to give importance to the author now in the age of AI? So are we moving away from the structuralist approach here?
That's a good question. Thanks for asking. See, it's not a problem. It is an evolving definition of author. If you see who is an author, author was not there in the ancient days when epics and songs, the cycle songs, cycle stories were sung. Then comes Renaissance, then Enlightenment. When the printing press comes, the author has become they want to have a name for that, because someone has to be made accountable. So in the age of AI, if you don't talk about authorship, who will be accountable for whatever has been written? If something bad is happening, someone has to sue. Okay, the AI will write anything for you. But as an author, you should take responsibility for that. That is my concern, because it should not go unaccountable. That's what I said. You can delegate decisions, you can delegate work, but you cannot delegate responsibility. Responsibility cannot be delegated. You can delegate work, you can delegate decisions, but responsibility should never be delegated. Because the AI is there, you should never think of delegating responsibility to AI. AI is nothing. AI is simply yet another tool, like your language, your writing, like your printing press, digital media. So only created that chain in that slide. Now we do cognitive AI. So it's yet another tool. That's all. Thank you for the question.
Any other questions? Somebody's raising their hand.
Good evening, sir. This is UB Blossom.
Yeah.
My question is about the job opportunities for humanities students and scholars in the age of AI. How can we, as a teacher, how can we train our students to have career opportunities in recent AI era? Thank you, sir.
Yeah, that shows you're a responsible teacher. waiting to help your students. See, this can not be answered in a simple 2 minutes session. Maybe if time permits and everything is comes correct, I can have yet another session for what are the job opportunities for the entire literature students. See, I have done a little bit of a research on it, and I have identified 9 to 10 industrial areas where literature students can get jobs. The only sad thing is we never say that to our students when they join literature. When they come to the literature class, they simply think they'll become yet another teacher like me. No, they can become a lot of stuff. So, for example, as a PRO, see, after completing your BA literature, you can go into 9, 10 industry verticals. PRO is one, and you can become a content writer and technical writer. See, now I'll tell you, the AI has killed the jobs. People say that. No, AI has killed the jobs who don't know how to use AI. You have good language command. You have to generate content at a breakneck speed for a company. You are there to do that. See, slowly that also will be questioned because they will create that in a workflow. But someone has to give a prompt, someone has to create an environment, someone has to check the output, correct? So there are a lot of opportunities. The one thing is study the language properly. You should be language fluent, number one. Literature will help you in terms of increasing your critical capabilities. Third one, learn the correct tools. Definitely, how to use AI responsibly will get you a job. But not only that, you should have your language, literature, and other stuff. Sam, definitely we will explore this concept in another webinar, Sam.
Yes, sir. Noted.
Yeah, we will do it. We will definitely do that, ma'am, for you. Okay.
Participants, any more questions?
So can we wind up?
Yeah, please.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So as we approach the conclusion of today's webinar, it is time to express our heartfelt gratitude to everyone who contributed to the success of this program. I now invite Mr. Sam Surya to deliver the words of gratitude.
Good evening to one and all. On behalf of the organizing committee, it is my privilege to propose the vote of thanks. Our sincere gratitude to Professor V. Selvin, St. Joseph University, Dindivanam, for delivering an engaging and insightful special address. Your valuable perspectives, practical examples, and inspiring thoughts have certainly enriched our understanding and motivated us to explore the topic further. Dear sir, thank you. We are privileged to have you as our lead. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
We extend our heartfelt thanks to Professor Joseph Dunstan for introducing our distinguished speaker and setting the stage for today's session. Thank you, dear sir. Our appreciation also goes to Mrs. Narmada for her warm welcome and for efficiently moderating this entire session, making it lively and meaningful. We gratefully acknowledge the support and encouragement of our university leadership, the organizing team, faculty members, our scholars, students, and every participant who enthusiastically uh, made today's program a great success. As Helen Keller beautifully said, alone we can do so little, together we can do so much. Today's webinar stands as a testament to the power of collaborative learning. Thank you all for your valuable time and active participation. We look forward to welcome you again next week for another enriching session. Thank you. Have a pleasant evening. Before we close, this is a gentle reminder. The feedback link is posted in the chat. It will be open till 9 p.m. today. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sam Surya, for your sincere words of appreciation. We hope today's session has inspired new ideas and meaningful reflections on the role of artificial intelligence in shaping the future of the humanities. Thank you once again for joining us. Have a pleasant evening. Meet you next week. Thank you. Sir, please close the session.